Welcome back to another Q&A video. If you got any questions, post yours down below and let's get started. Hey Alex, what is your theory on why do ring gymnasts have such great physiques without focusing on hypertrophy? What can we learn and apply from their trainings from a muscle building perspective? Greetings from France. Greetings from Canada. Has to do with many clear identifiable factors. One of them being the leverage aspect. I don't think average lifters realize how difficult these movements are. On Maltese, you're leaning your entire body forward, putting stress directly on that bicep in one of the worst mechanical positions ever. So what do you think is going to happen over years of developing your tendon strength and putting your muscles in stretched out, awkward positions? The muscle will have to grow. Hypertrophy, you see, is nothing more than a side effect of improved performance in this case. And when we talk about rings, literally every advanced move is psychotic by design. I can't do most of them, and 99% of my audience can't either. So why do you think these guys have such great backs, biceps, even the stuff that they do to build their chest, shoulders, and tries? Put this in perspective. Basic calisthenics. You see guys in the streets doing high rep push-ups, pull-ups, and dips. Maybe some advanced somewhat variation, because I'm not even going to compare that to what rings can offer. They got great physiques. Even the people who do weighted calisthenics with not so much loads look amazing. But compared to what rings have to offer, it's an absolute joke. Rings are the next level of bodyweight training. You can pretty much hit every muscle in your upper body with adequate intensity and volume. The progressions are endless. And when you're at the elite level, you're an Olympic athlete. First of all, you need the genetics to pull that off. So already we're talking about a group that has great leverages with the muscle building capacity to go with it. Then we got the drugs factored in addition to years and years and years of perfecting this craft. I'd be surprised if these athletes didn't have great physiques. What about the shredded aspect? Most of them are on the shorter side and they're in the 140s. Weight-wise, some even the 130s. So they're not really massive per se, but because they have the right proportions, they're a bit stockier, they got the super lean physiques to go with it, they look freaking aesthetic. But if they were to stand right next to a taller dude who's a bit huskier, probably wouldn't look as big by comparison. Maybe some muscles would pop more, but at the end of the day, there's also an illusion element to this. So I just want you guys to try out rings, buy a set, work out at the park for a little bit or hanging on top of your pull-up bar and see for yourself why these guys are jacked. Because the moment you try doing some moves like the iron cross or you lean your body all the way forward, you do basic stuff even like RTO dips, you'll soon realize exactly why this is a cause and effect relationship. Way to stretch with that extreme body control, it's something else. Like, yeah, there is a skill component, but part of building that skill is hypertrophying the correct muscles. And one thing you could do, which is not the Maltese, is actually lying down on a bench, grabbing some dumbbells and lifting them in front of you. Most gymnasts are able to hit a pretty heavy weight on the exercise. I'd say most people probably can't touch half of what they're doing. So just put that in perspective. Many of the moves that average gym bros want to learn are simply transitions into something greater. Like the front lever is at the bottom of that list when we talk about advanced ring movements. You do the front lever to get into different positions. The planche on the floor is nothing compared to the planche on rings. Just saying. Hey Alex, the ceiling in my room is at a height that doesn't allow me to do a standing OHP. I tried the Z press, but I think that the kneeling OHP emulates better the standing OHP, and so far I haven't had any problems. Do you think that the kneeling OHP is a safe, long-term solution? Yes, I do. And if I had your issue, that would probably be on the top of my list. In addition to a few other options I'd like to share with you right now. You can actually buy a cambered bar attachment, which goes on your barbell sleeves so that you're no longer loading it from, say, here. It'll be right there. So now even when you bring your bar to the ceiling, the plates will not touch. It literally cannot happen. So that's one potential thing you can buy, but there's also going to be a little bit more swinging involved. So maybe not as similar, even though it's a standing overhead press. Beyond that, the kneeling OHP is great. Obviously, the only concern would be taking the weight out. You might be losing out a little bit of performance. And some guys have a tendency of folding their backs, so they're not maintaining maximum rigidity. And you can't really use your glutes as much, as well as being properly engaged through the kinetic chain because your foot is not planted on that ground. So biomechanically, it's extremely similar, but there are a few key areas that will leave poundages on the table. And I'm not sure if that's really getting more or less weight considering the similarity. In this case, a Z press would be more different. So it is a close substitute. I've obviously done it in the past and I can't really say anything negative about it. The final thing I'd say is to do the seat overhead press. So get yourself an adjustable bench, set the position really high, and you're good to go. In fact, some guys don't even enjoy doing regular vertical presses. They choose to not be 100% upright, but at a slight incline. This way you can lift 15 pounds more, and it tends to be a little bit easier on the shoulder joints for some, particularly if you're prone to getting injured and stuff like that. Hi Alpha, my question, belt squatting in Zercher Good Morning is the best option for teenagers with lightweight and little stress on lower back? Greetings from Chile. I wouldn't say so. Like, the belt squat is definitely a great exercise and you can start that in any moment, but the Zercher Good Morning is arguably more tricky and it's harder to learn the hip hinge for a lot of people who start off directly with it. I don't see anything wrong with the traditional barbell back squat and conventional deadlift for now. Why? The absolute load is so little that an injury is extremely unlikely to begin with. And why would you not want to build your technique on the fundamentals? Like, it's one thing to specialize in a variation once you know how to do the basics, but to just go straight into something a little bit more advanced doesn't really make sense to me, with an irrational fear that you'll get injured when that's not going to happen to begin with. Like, you can get injured doing the Zercher stuff too because your technique is already all over the place and the muscle weaknesses are apparent regardless. So to me, you should watch a ton of videos on the big three. Watch every single YouTube video you could think of and master that form. Maybe go in there for a month and just practice lightweight with an empty bar or something that's not too heavy, maybe less than 135. I think this is setting you up better for the long term. And once you're getting closer to the intermediate stage, which probably won't take too long to acquire, then you can start mixing in more of these Zercher styles and you can make the belt squat one of your main lifts. But also consider the belt squat is not exactly like a barbell back squat. There are some form differences here. And if you're not used to having a barbell directly on your back, you're missing out on that specificity aspect, not to mention the fact that it could be a little bit more quad dominant. In regards to lower back stress, maybe that's not a good thing right now because you don't have any muscle in your lower back. You know, getting that foundational isometric strength, to me, it's the smarter choice. And recovery isn't going to be hard to begin with. Put this in perspective. You got novices doing 5x5 3 to 4 times a week with a bar on their back. You can do this too as a teenager. Some of them are even in the calorie deficit. All right, don't be fearful. Use the correct program and stay away from ego lifting. You'll be just fine. Hey Alex, what do you think about drop sets for the neck? Greetings from Italy. Well, first of all, drop sets are not necessary for any muscle group, but what I would say for the neck is could be beneficial for some individuals that are either pressed on time or don't have the best mind-muscle connection, as in their form isn't quite there. And as they get close to, say, reps of 25, the last 5 are kind of sloppy and they tend to use their abs a lot more. So in the case of cheat reps or your reps in reserve being quite far off from zero, I suppose the drop set could allow you to use better form and accumulate more volume. But was it necessary to begin with? Probably not. And also when you consider the fact that most people train their neck, use lower rest intervals with higher reps, that kind of builds in the mechanism you're looking for. So I don't see the drop sets being incredibly beneficial unless we're talking about a circuit type workout. So if you do a neck curl with straight weight and then you finish it off with a lighter band neck curl, okay, now you're going to failure with those final joint angles. So maybe you had a little bit more left in the tank. So that's a different kind of drop set as opposed to just having a 45-pound plate on your head and then dropping it to a 25-pounder. You probably didn't have to do that. I would only say it's more helpful if you go to 100% body weight. But honestly, everything I just said right now probably doesn't matter that much. Whether you do drop sets or not, you're still gonna get results. Are you inducing progressive overload or not? So if workout 1, you did 4 sets of 25 with a plate, and then workout 2, you do the same thing, but now you're also getting reps of 10 as a drop set with 25 pounds. And over time, you're doing 15. Well, you still made gains. So to me, there's nothing magical about drop sets. It's another tool in the toolbox. If you want to mix up your program like that, fine, so be it. But I don't see you getting superior net growth as a result of doing this. If you're doing 10 to 20 sets a week of neck work, getting close to failure, getting stronger, drop sets or not, you're getting yoked. Hey Alex, you think a 4 times a week full body program, basically every other day, can work long term? Yes, you can probably hit your genetic limit with this approach. But I find 4 times a week tends to be too much for most lifters because you really have to auto-regulate, and at some point you're so strong that systemic fatigue absolutely becomes a problem. And for what? For 2 additional full body workouts that on paper sounds good, but in real life application, you probably don't get that much more swole. You probably only need twice a week muscle protein synthesis per body part. 3 might have a slight advantage, but 4, I don't really see it being this ultimate game changer. Like if you do full body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, heavy, light, medium, you got what you needed, straight up. And I would say it might even be better because your recovery will be superior on every possible level. 4 times a week is a different game, my friend. And you'll find that it's not usually every other day. Sometimes you end up taking 3 days off. That's just how the system auto-regulates. Not to mention the fact that the rep ranges tend to get mixed up a lot more, and you'll have so much exercise selection because you're not gonna do the same workout every other day. I don't know how long you'll be able to milk the programs. So why not simplify your life a little bit? Choose a structured system that has you going on the same days with identifiable percentages, in this case, heavy, light, medium, and get pretty much the same results, maybe slightly less, but in the long term, doesn't really matter. That's what I think is better. I did 4 times a week. I've tried every full body system you could think of. 2 to 3 is the ultimate sweet spot. That is the most sustainable approach long term with weight training. If we're talking about calisthenics, could be a little bit of a different discussion, or GPP type sessions. But when you're a serious guy, let's say trying to bench 405, I'm not sure I'd recommend you doing full body 4 times a week for years on end. Not saying it can't be done, nothing wrong with it per se, just that it's more complicated for something that's probably not gonna make that much of a big deal in the end. Hey Alex, I get elbow pain, tightness when doing ring, tricep extensions, any tips? Maybe you don't have the tendon strength right now to properly handle ring extensions. Are you using the rings in a low position? If so, I'd recommend hiring it up for now. Get reps of 20 to 33. If you're in traditional bodybuilding rep ranges, using hard leverages, so the rings are practically on the ground and now you're extending and your leg is fully back, that can be stressful for some people who haven't built up to that level of performance. It's like JM presses. It's an exercise you can go quite heavy on, even day 1. But you will feel your tricep tendon based off the fact that you haven't worked in those joint angles. And I see the same way with these extensions. In the first question, I described how gymnasts build their tendon strength over years and years and years. So even if your muscle strength is on point, you might not be able to handle the exercise itself. It's like me. When I first started doing the ring exercises, I had difficulty in the RTO position, even though my weighted chin-ups were strong. With some specific movements, you actually do have to go through the progressions. Not because you can't do them necessarily, as in just mustering it with everything you got, but to prevent injuries and pain from arising. And in this case, you're doing extensions off rings. I think you just got to high rep it a little bit more and gradually work yourself into those difficult positions that you're currently doing. Also, you can probably warm up more thoroughly and do push downs right before attempting the extensions. That might help with the pain temporarily. So maybe a little bit more of a warm up is a good idea. What angle to set the bench for an incline bench? I usually see 45 degrees or higher in the gym, but I've read just about parallel is best. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, the fixed incline benches I see with the barbell are not really the best in my opinion. It's far too steep and you're getting more so of a shoulder workout than an actual chest specific accessory exercise or even main builder. I never liked the excessive inclines if we're talking about a chest day, quote unquote. Obviously, it'll still help your bench press, but I think it's more specific to OHP in this case. The smarter position is the lowest available adjustability. So whatever your bench allows for that's not flat, do that. And in many cases, that's going to be 30 degrees, but 45 is perfectly fine as well. It's just when you go beyond that point, which is all too common, I don't really see the benefits that many gym bros are claiming. Finally, if you don't have an adjustable bench, or you just don't like the setup, you want to do it in the power rack, stack up your flat bench on some plyometric boxes. That's what I've done, and mine are 12 inches. This leads to a 19.5 degree incline. And the way I figured this out was with that app, the leveling app, okay? So that too is a fine position, and it will be a lot weaker than your flat bench. Don't think for a second that, oh, it's not a true incline. Yeah, it is. You're still gonna hit the upper chest a little bit more if we make that argument. Well, of course, having great transference to the more flat type presses. Now, if you don't wanna do the 12-inch plow boxes, 14 to 16 will probably give you a little bit more of an incline, but not too excessive. So maybe it's superior to the traditional adjustable bench, at least if we're talking about minimizing the vertical action. So yeah, the main message is don't use the highest positions on that incline bench. Hey Alex, do one arm pull-ups carry over well to weighted pull-ups? Yes, they do. If you're using the max effort method and you happen to do one arm pull-up as your 1 rep max, then it counts. Most people who do one plate on the weighted pull-up can't even do a 1 arm pull-up. So from a percentage sheer brute strength standpoint, they're pretty much interchangeable. And I can tell you that when I was doing a tremendous amount of 1 arm pull-ups, oftentimes I wouldn't be doing weighted pull-ups on that same session. But the next week, when I would go in, 3 plates and above, weights would fly. And I think that's true for a lot of people who master the exercise. Find me a guy who could do 1 arm pull-ups for reps, and I'll show you a guy who can put up some really good numbers on weighted pull-ups, even if he doesn't train them. Only exception would be if the guy's excessively skinny. That's a different topic. Hey Alex, the only gym in my area is Planet Fitness. Any advice on strength training with only Smith machines and dumbbells? Besides telling you to get a home gym or alternating between home workouts and Planet Fitness workouts, I would just tell you to drop the Smith machine work completely. I don't recommend it. I think it's dangerous for the most part. And I just never liked the Smith machine at all. I know some guys are completely in favor of it, and they've actually laid out some good arguments supporting the benefits. But you know what? I will admit that I'm highly biased against it. So maybe you're asking the wrong dude for this particular question. So I'm just letting you know that I specifically dislike the Smith machine. So I would tell you to do exclusively dumbbell workouts. You can probably get insanely jacked, even to advanced status, with using nothing but dumbbells. And even if there are weight restrictions, so what? Let's say the dumbbells go up to 75 pounds. Well, imagine if you're shoulder pressing that for reps of 10 to 20. You'll be strong. What about all the isolation exercises? That will never be a problem for you. I suppose the only issue that could potentially be problematic is the legs. But if we're doing walking lunges or reverse lunges with the maxed out stack, now you're in a pretty good spot. If you're doing dumbbell RDLs, hey, one-legged, now we're talking. So you can still build nice legs. And actually the machines on the side, like the standard leg curl machine, probably leg press, it's all gonna assist. And then to top things off, what if you incorporate body weight training into this mix? I'm sure there's somewhere that you can do pull-ups in that gym, or better yet, bring your own rings, though you'd probably get kicked out for doing that. So forget about that point. You can always do that at home, like I said, alternating back and forth. So why not master your body weight, get really good at the most difficult variations, and then go in the gym, do hypertrophy work with the dumbbells? I think you'll look amazing. Better than all those guys who are training. Just saying. When I do Zercher holds, my upper back hurts. Is that a tightness or weakness? I would say muscular weakness, because I don't really see the Zercher being a great mobility indicator. Like, look at Kiriako's Grizzly. Actually, the guy is mobile, but you can be a big dude and have no problem getting that Zercher position. So it's not that you're overly tight. It's that you're in this position here. You're being rolled forward, and the Zercher forces you to extend, similar to a front squat. Or if you're not extending, it doesn't matter. The weight of stretch component itself, just holding the weight up here, is isometrically stabilizing the upper back. And when you can go heavy on this lift, yeah, you're gonna feel it throbbing like crazy. It is completely normal in this case. A lot of lifters feel it more than back squats. So I actually view this as a benefit in the sense that you've identified something that needs strengthening. And by doing more Zercher lifts or just training the upper back with additional volumes and weights and all that, I'll make the argument that your deadlift and squat will benefit a lot more for it. So I don't see a problem with this, and it's completely normal to get sore in the upper back from doing Zerchers. I heard elbow sleeves are a band-aid fix for elbow issues and could eventually lead to an even bigger issue. Do you think this has any merit? Do knee sleeves have the same risk when squatting. To my knowledge, there isn't any evidence to suggest this is true, and I haven't heard any guys talk trash about that. So why is the opposite logic being applied to the elbows? I think people just don't know any better and have no experience with using elbow sleeves. Because I'm someone who actually has hypermobile elbows and used to have excessive pain for years. Guess what? I corrected the problem with the strategies you saw in my elbow pain solution video. And then to compound everything, started wearing elbow sleeves. I think it's great insurance. Compression and warmth. How could that be a negative, especially if we don't exclusively use the sleeves and we're still addressing the root cause of elbow pain? So if I'm wearing sleeves, but I rotate exercise to minimize overuse, I isolate my triceps, I do the connective tissue work, I'm doing all these things to make my body feel better. Is that worse than someone who runs a minimalist program but never wears sleeves because he's a raw, manly man? Bullshit. A lot of guys have elbow issues, most of which don't even use sleeves whatsoever. So that is not, like, to me, that's not the driver of pain. So instead of listening to people who theorize all the time, look at guys like me that are actually in the trenches with legit, warning, hypermobile elbows. I wear sleeves all the time. I don't get more pain when I wear them. As long as there's never any band-aid action, you can use the equipment. It's like me, I wear wrist wraps. Is that because I have weak wrists? No, I just like to wear them when I go heavy. You can take them off at any moment and you'll perform pretty much the same. So adding in this extra stuff isn't really detrimental in my books. I'd make the argument it's the opposite. It's better on recovery. What do you think is a respectable amount of weight to dumbbell curl before you start entering bicep tear, elbow tendonitis territory? Love your videos from Scotland. Well, thank you, man. Well, first of all, I highly doubt you'll tear a bicep doing curls. Even among steroid users, this is quite uncommon. The real issue lies in big compound movements like deadlifts. That's where the bicep tear compilations are so prevalent. But in the case of tendonitis, that's a different story altogether. And I don't know if it's necessarily weight dependent or minimalist overuse related, because you can be lifting 35-pound dumbbells, which isn't anything crazy, but because your program is so poorly managed from a fatigue standpoint and overall exercise selection standpoint, you can very well develop issues with light loads. So I don't know that I can definitively state X weight will cause tendonitis, because there's a lot more factors that go into this, even your profession or years of training leading up to that point. So I suppose my only speculation would be when you start curling 45 pounds, perhaps that could be more of a risk. But even then, there's nothing scientific or accurate about that. Tendonitis goes far beyond just you lift this and now you're likely to get problems. It's like me, when I was deadlifting the 300s, my lower back would hurt like crazy. But then I entered the 5s and it happened less. So it wasn't actually the weight in the situation. I just got smarter with my programming, and hence the overuse went down. So that's what needs to be addressed, in my opinion. Smart, balanced training corrects most of the tendonitis problems. Hey Alex, what would 1,000 to 2,000 band rows every day do to my back gains? Also, would eating 400 grams of plant protein a day affect my gains? Would it be more efficiently absorbed since it's not as hard on your kidneys? Okay, I don't know if you're trolling me, but I don't see why you would do any of this stuff. In regards to the plant-based protein, no one needs that much in their diet, including the world's best athletes. 0.8 grams per pound of body weight is all you need. And if you don't subscribe to that, then you can even base it off lean mass if you choose to. So if you weigh 200 pounds, I don't think you'd benefit more than 200 grams of protein. Or if you really want to be excessive, 250 grams. Done deal. And most lifters who are natural aren't going to be weighing in the high 200s anyway. So actually, even under that situation, I can't think of any reason why a natural lifter would consume that much protein. When I logically break it down, it doesn't make sense. It's too much protein. I don't know who has brainwashed you, but let's say you're consuming a lot of protein shakes to get this done, you probably wouldn't need more than just one. Like max 3 scoops in one shake, follow with the whole food nutrition, you're good to go. And in regards to the band rows, I suppose for nucleus overload, it could be somewhat beneficial, but the reps don't need to be that high. Because now we're talking about 10 to 20 sets of 100. What are your reps going to look like? How's the fatigue going to kick in? Does that really make sense? Maybe 100 to 500 rows a day is all you need in this case? 1,000 tops, like maximum, and that's if you're going balls to the wall, like some prisoners do? But even then, like, I don't see why you would do this, bro. I really don't see the benefit. You'd probably get better gains doing less reps and sets. So even a classic 4 sets of 25 with an appropriate load getting close to failure will do much more for you than 1,000 low quality repetitions. All right, guys, final question of the week. Hello, Alex. I'm a novice with fragile elbows during extensions. I don't mean lying skull crushers position behind the head. I mean like one arm dumbbell overhead extensions. I get pain when I lock out on them. And yes, I'm doing connective tissue work. But the thing is, do I have to like progress from the red band to the black band, for example, to see good results in my elbow pain? Not really, because the whole point is to drive blood into the muscle and perform high repetitions to hypertrophy the connective tissue. It's not about progressive overload, even though that could occur to a small extent. In my case, the max I've ever done for the high rep pushdowns is a light band, which in my opinion is too thick. I dropped doing that years ago. I think 2017 is probably the last time I went that heavy. The max, and I literally mean this, that I go to these days is a Monster Mini, which could be black or blue depending which company you're buying from. And most of you probably won't have to double this either. Just singling a Monster Mini, getting on your knees, high repping it, it's more than enough. Like if anything, you just add in more sets. You'll be pumped. Like if you're doing reps of 50 with a Monster Mini, after the 4th set, you got the benefits, man, especially if you're doing this on a frequent basis. So when I talk about this type of training, it's never supposed to be incredibly stressful. You're simply acquiring a massive pump, getting the movement pattern in, and it tends to make your body feel better the day after, say, heavy benching or whatever. So these days, if I'm also being honest, I've been using doubled micro mini bands. I find it's a nice little hybrid zone for me. You might not be strong enough to handle that though. Maybe just singling a regular mini is more than enough. So I'll just say this, trust the process and don't sabotage your form just to get a little bit more band tension, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna go that heavy anyway. Now just to give you a little bit of hope, I used to be in your situation too. Years ago, I would grab a 5-pound dumbbell, same exercise, man, one arm extensions. I got horrific elbow pain to the point where I was making videos talking trash about skull crushers, saying that they're completely unneeded, it's gonna destroy your elbows. I was talking from a pure place of ignorance. And for years, I could not do the exercise with the lightest of loads, no matter the variation. The only thing that truly fixed it was the high rep band pushdowns. And since then, I've been able to do extensions pain-free for a long time now. So I swear by this, man. Stay on it, and there's a high chance your pain will permanently go away, or at least be reduced by a drastic amount, at least 60%. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this Q&A. Let's see some more questions down below, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.